Afternoon. How are you today, Barton?
I'm fine. Yourself?
I'm good as usual. So, welcome again for this. Let's talk about. Today we are talking about what the my realtor, what forms should my realtor use on my contract. So, but before, Barton, it's a real estate attorney and it's the partner for Stroke Cohen Zipper and Law Group and Safekey Title and Closing. It is also a Florida Supreme Court certified civil and county court mediator. And you have a lot of experience in real estate, in law, and many years working in Florida. So, as a realtor, I learned how to use or utilize the contracts that are being right for us, not realtors, to use on these transactions representing buyers and sellers. And the most of the cases we use basically one contract as is contract, and not all the time have to be an as is, and also we need more support depends of the transaction that we are working. So I would like to ask you to help us realtors to better represent our buyers and sellers and talk about what the forms should will use to uh, do this beautiful work that is real estate.
Okay, so I have been recommending the FAR bar as is contract for years. So I'm going to tell you why. But before I even get there, I am going to give you the results of a vote by realtors. Okay, so how did the realtors vote on which contract they're going to use? So I found statistics from the fourth quarter of 2022 from Form Simplicity on
Okay.
which contracts we used. So, um, not counting any of the local realtor associations, like I think Naples or something, they have their own form. I know Orlando used to. I don't know if they do anymore.
No.
Um, Okay. So in the fourth quarter of 2022, there were 63,650. I take that back. 71,910 contracts written on Form Simplicity. Of those, 63,650 or 89% were done on the FAR bar as is contract.
Okay.
Um, and 1% or 1,070 was done on the Florida Realtors contract for residential sale. The rest of those were done on the FAR bar residential contract, but not the as is one. Okay.
Hmm.
I don't see anybody use that contract anymore. So overwhelmingly, 1,070 to 63,650, the realtors selected the FAR bar as is contract as their favorite contract.
Yeah.
So just from a matter of preference for realtors, they are using that contract because they're familiar with it. That's
Hmm.
the contract that's mostly taught. That's the contract that's mostly used. If you get an offer on a different contract, do you really know how to advise your client what to do with it? No.
No.
So I tell all my realtor clients, when you take a listing, you put in that listing, offers only accepted or offers will only be presented to the seller on the FAR bar as is current contract. And
Okay.
that should be in the listing. And that way, if you get a contract on the Florida Realtors contract, you don't have to show it to the seller because you can't explain it. Unless you've worked with it regularly, you can't explain it to your client. In a minute, I'm going to explain to you all the bad things about it, why it is not used. Okay? There's one
Okay.
good thing about it. Um, so, um, all my clients do that. So I took out both contracts this morning because I never used the Florida Realtors contract. The crispy contract for residential sale and purchase. I'll always use the as is. And so the first reason not to use the Florida Realtors contract and to use the FAR bar contract
Hmm.
is that the FAR bar contract has calendar days to count from, and the Florida Realtors is business days. Well, that's just unnatural because I use when I get a contract, especially a commercial one, but
Hmm.
I go to a computer program I have of calendar counting days. And I put in the first day, and then I say plus 10 days. And it tells me what date the 10th day comes out on, and it tells me the day of the week. So if it's a Saturday, Sunday, or it tells me it's a national holiday, I go over to the next day. I
Okay.
can't do that with business days
Exactly. Hmm.
because it counts all days. It doesn't define business days in that program. Okay. By the way, it's a program calendar. What is it called? I don't even know. Calculator, add to, or something. There's some great programs online free for that to count the days. Okay. So that's number one reason. Um, Number two reason, and probably the most important, is the dispute resolution section. So we all know the FAR bar contract says you have a 10 days for the party to resolve the dispute themselves. Then they have to try to go to mediation. By the way, for anybody who doesn't use me as a closing agent, I am a certified county and circuit court mediator, and I do pre-suit mediations at a reduced rate. Get them done in and out quick to see if we can get the people to agree and move on before a lawsuit starts. So then after you have the cooling off period and the mediation period, you then go to court, which most of the time is county court because that has jurisdiction up to $75,000.
Okay.
Um, and more often than not, it's a lot less. Sometimes even small claims, 8,000, and it's a very inexpensive filing fee, and you get a pretty quick resolution of the case. And the prevailing party gets costs and attorney's fees, which makes people think twice. Because from my other hat, owning a title company, when a deal breaks apart, when there's trouble in a deal, then we're able to send out a letter from our law firm side that says you're wrong. If you don't close or you don't give back the deposit, we're going to sue you. And we're going to sue you for the deposit plus costs and attorney's fees, besides you paying your own attorney's fees.
Yeah.
And that could sometimes be more than the deposit. In every mediation, the mediator stresses the potential cost of this case to you. It's basically a double or nothing crapshoot on attorney's fees. So that's a big part of it. But if you go to the Florida Realtors contract for residential sale and purchase, it has the mediation, but it then requires you go to arbitration, and each side bears their own court costs and attorney's fees. So let me tell you about the problem with arbitration for a $10,000 case or a $20,000 deposit dispute. The court, you pay $300, $400 filing fee in a court, and they provide a judge and all the systems of the court. If you go to arbitration, you are paying the arbitrator. So you're looking at a filing fee of a minimum $3,000 or $4,000. It's not worth it. There's no prevailing party attorney's fees, and and on bigger cases, there's no ability, you cannot appeal.
Yeah.
So if the judge makes a mistake or does a bad ruling, you can't appeal an arbitration like you can a county court case. So, I mean, I personally tell my clients, I will not let them sign a Florida Realtors contract for sale and purchase. That's it. It shouldn't, especially with so few being used in the state. I don't
Hmm.
understand why they still have it other than their ego.
Yeah.
It was bad years ago, so it's worse. It's just as bad still.
I think
The
it's very important what you said about the arbitration and all that resolution and mediation, because uh, we take very lightly when we did the contract for the days for the inspection and loan commitment and specific days. Sometimes we take very lightly or we get distracted and the day pass, and then when the other agent said, oh, you didn't, I'm missing this, I'm missing that, you didn't do that, and then you are out of a contract, it begins like a big deal, like why you are doing this or that, because I feel that sometimes we don't understand what means all that details that this contract has, and as is, I don't want to think about using another that can be more complicated and more detailed in when we are basically having the money for another, for the buyer on tied to a contract that we don't know if will be closing or not.
Well, that's another issue with the Florida Realtors contract for sale and purchase. So, under the recent changes, well, it's recent, it's at least 3 years already, maybe more, in the financing provision of the FAR contract,
Mhm.
they took the appraisal and moved that to part of loan approval. So, if you don't
Mhm.
have your appraisal within the loan approval period, you're not approved and you could cancel.
Yeah.
The Florida Realtors contract for residential sale and purchase says you could be approved, but if it doesn't appraise afterwards, you get your deposit back and you can cancel. So there's no certainty of that contract after 30 days. You can
Yeah.
come up the day before the contract and say, oops, it didn't appraise, give me my money back. Okay?
Very important to
Everybody
understand that.
complained about the Florida FAR bar contract when they changed that, but it has worked beautifully. We have
Yes.
much less in the cancellation of deals at the last minute when the
Hmm.
seller has already put their stuff on the moving van and then the buyer says, oh, look, it didn't appraise, goodbye.
Yeah.
That's specifically not allowed.
Yeah.
Um, Also, the Florida, especially for us here in Miami-Dade and Broward County, the
Hmm.
Florida Realtors contract does not have the Miami-Dade Broward County provision
Yes.
for lien search and title search to be paid by the seller, not the buyer, even though the buyer is selecting. So that could cost the buyer an extra $500
Hmm.
uh, when that's done. Um,
Yeah. Orlando has the seller paying for that title insurance,
well, we
unless.
have all those choices. We have seller pays, buyer pays, or you could do the Miami-Dade provision, which is a historical provision, which is still in there that's used.
Mhm.
And it's the most widely used provision in Miami-Dade and Broward County. I don't like the inspection provisions of the Florida Realtors contract because it doesn't give you that warning in bold about if you don't cancel during the inspection period, you assume all the permits,
Mhm.
which we now write in every contract. Seller will close all permits, fines, blah blah blah. So we've taken care of that already. The
Also,
contract,
about that it's not good reading for many realtors when they just put the
it's
number.
not, if you don't know it,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Hmm.
Um, the only good thing that I could tell you about the Florida Realtors contract is that in the list of personal property, it includes the washer and dryer, which in the FAR bar contract, you have to write it
Yeah.
in, uh, in other personal property. That's the only good thing about it.
Which is good also because for a long time we cannot find washer and dryer. So
It's not
it
in
was
there.
pretty good.
You have to write it in there.
that's, that's good. Yeah, that's a good one.
And you also have to make sure, I mean, it does say existing at the time that that's existing at the time the property was shown, or is that when the contract was
Mhm.
done. But you have to make sure that the sellers don't swap out those expensive appliances.
Mhm.
So I like to write in my contract in the special clauses what the appliances are, especially if they're high-end architectural or builders premium products. Mhm.
And you put that on the contract, or you do that on an addendum?
Either way,
Either way. Okay.
either way. So sometimes I put it in special clauses when I write a contract. Understand, when I write a contract, it's after I told the person you must use a realtor. No, I'm not. I want you to do it. Listen, I'm not going to your inspection with you. I'm not doing this. I'm not holding your hand unless you want to pay me 6%.
I
So
will.
people don't value um, the work that a realtor does.
Yeah, sometimes they don't feel like it's necessary, or basically we don't do anything that even protect buyers or sellers. So
Hmm.
I working right now with a buyer that it's out of state, that it's a veteran, and for me it's a huge responsibility when the person is not here and don't even see the house. I did the inspection live video with my beautiful inspector. That he was telling me like 2 hours and a half. We
Yeah.
were on the sellers
Hmm.
were there. They refused to get out of the house. Let's say, you are more than welcome to stay. It's your house. But I will be on the phone with the buyer. And she was asking me to open doors, put here what he said. For the inspector, which I have to bless Ernesto, he said
Mm.
like, in 7 years nobody did that to me, just you. And I'm sorry, like I really do, but it's my
He's a good
responsibility
inspector.
to see the house. And we find out a lot of little things here and there, and it can be, for a person that is not in communication at the time what's going on, is a double explanation. And I cannot move until it's done, and then I have to explain and I have to wait for the report. But sometimes it is like a no, it is no value. And I believe it's more for us as a realtor to show how we can help, how we can negotiate, how we work for you. And now I am extending long commitment. I'm extending closing. I don't have appraisal, so everything moves very fast. And the seller now wants post occupancy, and I go like, whoa. So yeah, it's a lot of little things that I love, by the way, but you have to be on top of everything. And then I
Yeah.
have to sing with you, and I
So
have years in my back.
what I like to do is I take the contract when it's filled in, I put in the effective date, and then I like to count the days and make sure I know. And then put in my calendar for a reminder the day before tomorrow's the last date for inspections or to
Mhm.
cancel.
Yeah.
Hmm. So that's what you need to do. So there's no doubt about it that more than 90% of the realtors use the FAR bar contract. Um, any attorney I know recommends the FAR bar contract. And yeah, it's the only way to go. And make sure you put that in your listings. All offers must be on the FAR bar, the most recent FAR bar as is contract. You always want the most recent one because it's up to date with the customs and usages in the community at that time. Okay, because sometimes I see people use a contract that's 2 or 3 versions old. Yeah.
I don't know why, because all the electronic signatures has the last one for.
No, these are not electronic signature So this is a realtor probably who hasn't really practiced real estate other than doing their own investments for years.
It is
And they
possible.
just have a pre-printed copy of this that they've been using for years and years and years. And I tell them, send the most recent contract, and they say, I don't have it.
Well, yeah. Well, it's happened. It's so many. I have maybe in South Florida, no, not that often in Orlando, that realtors are investors or have the license just because they are buying or selling or flipping, and they are doing their own job. So
Mm-hmm.
their own contracts sent into the realtors for any listing they have, and they are representing themselves. And at the end, they said, "Oh, by the way, I don't have a realtor, so like you're taking all the responsibility for me." Every time I saw that, they sent me an email like that. They go, "Oh, okay." And so I'm representing the seller. You don't have nobody. You are a realtor because you are sending me that email for a real estate company, but you are an investor and you want I put my name in the other side. Like I don't. It is not. That sounds not good to me, but yeah, they send any type of contract, and also attorney's contract, which I saw lightly like 4 times in the past month, which is an attorney contract for purchase, no, Florida, and my
Yeah, I
seller.
won't use one of those. That's just a waste of time
Mm.
and um, and the client's money. Why reinvent the wheel? This is the way we do it. It's the same thing that sometimes someone from New York is buying an a contract, investment property, and their attorney in New York starts making changes to the pre-printed contract.
I got that.
And I say to the attorney, are you licensed to practice in Florida? He says, no. I said, then don't change our contract.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few times, mostly with New York, that they scratch the contract, put initials, and then scratch again, and then put some notes at the top, and I go like, first of all, my OCD doesn't allow me to put scratches, so everything has to be clear. And then when you write something that I don't understand what I do, I go like, whoa. And I go back to the realtor and say, could you please, you just put my contract in the way it was and put everything out, because I don't understand what you're trying to say. Like, oh, their attorney, they are buying and they're okay. Well, they have to go for our system, because I have limited understanding and I don't understand everything that you put there.
The, the rules on the practices of real estate closings in New York are so different than ours. I'm licensed to practice in New York. I don't anymore. I have elected to become inactive so I don't have to take their continuing education. Of course, I don't use it, but the purchase of real estate in New York is an entirely different procedure than we
Yeah.
use. Nobody here would recognize that they're doing a real estate transaction.
Wow.
Totally different. Mhm. So,
So, what else we have to take in consideration when we are using this as is? What is important for more than understanding the entire contract, and if
so
not,
the most important thing is this: the person who made the offer filled in the line that you must accept it by a certain date,
okay,
and that means that it must be accepted and delivered. In other words, all parties have to sign and it be delivered by that date. You can't have someone sign at night and then deliver it the next morning if it's the date after. There's no contract. Then you have to go through redoing, either getting an addendum or re-signing it again or initialing the change in that date. So if you're sending in a contract late, it's been withdrawn, change that date so you don't think it's going to be there in time. Other than that, that's a whole contracts class that we'll deal with over the course of the year in
Yeah.
different sections of this. But that's the most important thing I see is number one, the date for acceptance, and two, that realtors fail to extend the financing contingency when they're at the end. They'll use that form and check the box, extend the closing date.
Mm-hmm.
The person hasn't been approved for a loan yet, so they don't check the box to extend the financing period. Those are
Yeah.
the two most important mistakes I see, which leads our law firm end to have business. Okay?
Yeah.
So I get it on the transaction side, and then I handle all the disputes that come up. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing my extension right now for my.
No, but people don't look at that second line to extend the financing period. Consistently, I see that. And I don't want to say to the people, what was your realtor thinking? Because usually the realtor was my client and sent the people to me. But in a nice way, I have to say, you're in trouble.
Yeah. And let's put it this way. We trust more to automatic put numbers without understanding what we are doing or reading and deep. I get into sometimes when I begin this being a realtor in Orlando, I got a policeman from Brazil asking me to read and basically explain all the contract.
Tell
So,
them to
but
get a lawyer.
so at that time, I barely speak Portuguese. I was trying to speak English, and I said to him, "I cannot do that. I cannot explain you the contract in order for you to be sure to sign. I can explain what I'm doing and the days we have to agree, and then the title company will come and will do everything. But we can go to ask for an attorney." And he was looking at me like, "Oh, why you are doing this job?" And I was like, "I was thinking about that." But yeah, we sometimes make the mistake to take lightly the dates, and it is
Mhm.
basically the heart of the transaction.
Right.
So with
Okay. Anything else?
no, that it's anything else. I have a bunch of likes every time you say the long commitment and the days and everything like full of likes. Yeah, after you came back for your vacations that I hope you enjoy a lot, I would like to do a webinar for realtors and at the end of March or anything, anytime that you have time to explain again all the changes on the contract and everything that it's included right now, dates,
Oh, she want
September.
a full contracts class.
Yes, I will love that. I would really would love
Let's
because
schedule it with Nina. We could do
I
that as
will.
a webinar. It takes a couple of hours.
Yes, I know. So I
Mm-hmm.
will do
Two to
that
three.
by
Mm-hmm.
the end of March or beginning of April when everything, begin normal.
So
Because
I'll be gone from February 10th to February 26th.
okay,
And
yeah,
then I
I
need a
know.
little time to catch up.
Hmm. I know.
Okay. But I
Okay,
love doing those. So, mhm.
and I believe it's so important. I really believe, and I have with even with the changes for the foreigner countries and everything. It is very important to know everything that is adding to the contract and how to,
So my classes are not law.
mhm,
My classes are based on dealing with the realtor on what this means and how to do it effectively. I'm not there to explain to you, well, the court said this, or the court
mhm,
said this, or this is the law. No, this is what the contract says, and here's the best way for you to handle it.
exactly.
You
Hmm.
should tell your client this, you should put in this, and I explain why. This is a nuts and bolts, hands-on contract. We'll have
and,
the contract up on the screen to share, and I'll point out everything that's important.
and
I
that's
mean,
what
there's a
we.
lot of stuff in there that the realtor does not have to know about. I mean, really, like the escrow agent. That's the escrow agent's responsibility.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
again, and I see you next week. And next week it's at 10 a.m. if it's not changes, and it's buyers and sellers read the contract.
Yeah, what they should know about the contract. Okay.
It's okay. Thank you so much,
Bye
and see you
bye.
next week. Bye.